students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be graphing tangent and cotangent functions, and you will be able to do 10.8. Today, students will be able to graph tangent and cotangent functions using the unit circle. And you can use the one that we filled out together, or you can use a smaller version if you wish. And for this lesson, we need to use the formula that tangent of theta is equals to sine of theta over cosine of theta. But I think I'm going to have to write it closer to here. So I'm going to write it here. Tangent of theta equals sine of theta over cosine of theta. Okay, that's what we're going to be using. We're going to focus on filling out these values first. And I'm going to start with 0, then go back to the negatives. Right here, you have the radians, and so those are the values for x that we're getting here, and that's what we're going to have on the x value. And so for 0, it's going to be, remember, sine over cosine. If you recall from previous lessons, the sine will always be your y value, okay? So let's put here that is the y value over the x value on those cosine and sine ratios. Okay, so for 0, it's going to be y value, it's 0, over 1, which is the cosine of 0. And so 0 divided by 1 is 0. Okay, I wrote it down there. 0 divided by 1 equals 0. So the value for y is going to be 0. For the next one, pi over 4, it's right here, and it's sine over cosine. Both, in this case, both are the same. So it's going to be square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2. And whenever you're dividing something by the same thing, you will always get 1 as the answer. Okay, so it's like saying 8 divided by 8, it's 1. 10 divided by 10, it's 1. 98 divided by 98 is 1, okay? Anytime you divide the same thing by that same thing, the answer is 1. And then for pi over 2 is right here. Again, it's going to be 1 divided by 0. The y value divided by the x value. And whenever you have something like that, remember that you cannot divide by 0. Anytime you divide by 0, let's do 1 divided by 0. This is what you get. Divided by 0, it's an error. The answer that we're going to write in here for the graphs or for slopes is undefined. Okay, so we're just going to put a u in here. And if you recall from slopes that are undefined, you get a line that is vertical, okay? Okay, so for the next one, 3/4 of pi, 3/4 of pi is right here. Again, the y value divided by the x value. The y value is square root of 2 divided by 2 divided by negative square root of 2 divided by 2. Negative square root of 2 divided by 2. And so what I do is always divide the signs first. Positive divided by negative is negative. And then again, whenever you divide the same thing by itself, you get 1. So negative 1 for the answer. Okay. For the next one is pi. It's right here. It's 0 for sine. And the cosine is the x value, which is negative 1. 0 divided by anything will always be 0. You cannot divide by 0, but 0 can be divided by anything, and the answer will always be 0. Let me bring this up a little. And so 5/4 of pi, 5/4 of pi is right here. Again, y divided by x. And both of these are negative because they're in the third quadrant. So negative square root of 2 divided by 2 over negative square root of 2 divided by 2. Negative divided by negative is positive, and the same thing divided by itself is always 1. So positive 1 here. And finally, we have 3/2 of pi. -1 is the sine value. The cosine value is 0. And again, because it's in the denominator. And again, 0 cannot be in the denominator. That's undefined. And so we put a u right here. Okay, now let's fill this up. Whenever you have negative values, it's like starting here. The positive values, you are going to go counterclockwise. For the negative values, your start here is like going backwards, right? So if we have -1/4 of pi, it's like saying, oh, go back 1/4. So this is going to be the negative. It's the same as -1/4 of pi, or pi divided by 4. Okay, so this is the coordinate that we're going to use for this value. And so again, it's negative square root of 2/2 divided by cosine, which is square root of 2/2. Negative divided by positive is negative. And anytime you have division of the same value, it's just 1. So this is going to be -1. For this last one, it's like going half backwards, right? So it's right here. So -1/2 of pi is the same as going around this much, okay? So again, the sign is -1. The cosine is 0. If you have 0 in the denominator, it's always undefined. And you sign the calculator that it's an error. And so you just write a u in here. Thank you, unit circle. Okay, and so now we have our values. We are able to graph, but before we do that, I will go back to our lesson so that we understand the graph of this part specifically. That when we had a slope that was positive, our line would go that way. So that's positive, a positive line. And then when the slope was negative, our line would go going like this, right? That will be a negative line or negative slope. But then we had one that was graphed this way, and that was the 0 line or 0 slope. And finally, we had one that went like this. That was our undefined. Our undefined slope. Okay, so whenever you see a u in here, that's what we're going to be graphing in our tangent line. Okay, so just so that you understand where they come from. And so in here we have -pi/2. -pi/2 is right here, and that's undefined. So what we're going to do is just draw a vertical line, and we can write it dotted. It just means that it will never touch that line. The graph will approach it, but it will never touch it because it's undefined. It's not possible for there to be points in there. And so for -pi/4 is -1. -pi/4 is -1. So you know what? I think so that it looks more pleasant, I'm going to change it. I'm going to put instead the 1 in here and the -1 down here. It could be the same thing. It's just that so that you can see it more. So let's go back. -pi/4 is -1. It's right here. Gonna look a little better. That's 0, 0. Pi/4 is 1. It's here, basically. Pi/2, it's undefined. So again, we're going to have our vertical line going through there. I'm sorry, it doesn't look very nice to have that in there, those patches. But I think it's gonna look better for the graph, okay? So now when you have this, again, it means that the line or my graph will not touch those vertical lines, those undefined. And so you're going to go something like this. It'll approach those vertical lines, but it will never touch it. Okay, and the same for the other side. It'll approach, so make sure that you take your time to create nice graphs for your teachers or professors. Okay, let's continue to graph. Now you have 3/4 of pi. 3/4 of pi is -1. It's right here, right? So 3/4 of pi and -1 for y, it's right there. And then you have pi is 0. 5/4 of pi is +1. And 3 pi over 2, or 3/2 of pi, is undefined again. Okay. And so again, we will create our graphs where these connect, and then this approaches the line, but it doesn't touch it. Oh, I was about to cross it. Then on this side, the same thing. It approaches the undefined line, but it never touches it. Okay, and so we don't have anything in here, and you can just find the values, but you can also just do a repetition, because this is going to be a pattern where it just repeats and repeats over and over and over. But that's how you graph your function of tangent. And so again, if you do the repetition in the middle, or meaning like 2 away from the undefined, is 0, 0. To one side you go positive right there, and then to the other side you go 1 down. Okay, and you would have your other undefined value right here. Just to guide us of where our line is going to stop, or basically not touch that undefined line. Okay, again, I'm taking my time so that you do the same thing, because we do appreciate nice graphs. Okay, so that's the tangent function. Now let's go to the cotangent. And for the cotangent, is the reciprocal, is cosine over sine. Okay, is the cosine over sine, not the sine over cosine. So it's the reciprocal of tangent. Okay, and so let's invite our unit circle. So let's write the formula here. Cotangent of theta is equals to cosine of theta divided by sine of theta. Okay, it's just to help us. It's easier to have it right here. Okay, so let's start with, now that we know that negative means going back, if you go half of pi back, it means from 0 you go back. Okay, so it's the same as 3 pi over 2. Why? Because you're going negatively. I don't know if that's a word or I'm inventing it, but you're going backwards. Instead of going like this, you're going back. Okay, so negative pi over 2, you go back to here, and it's cosine over sine. Now we're going to look at the x value on top divided by the y value, okay, on the denominator. And so let's start right here. It's going to be 0 divided by -1. 0 divided by -1. Any time you divide 0 by anything, it doesn't matter what it's in here, except 0, then the answer will be 0. And let me erase this. And so for the next one is negative pi over 4. So -1/4 of pi is right here. And it's going to be positive square root of 2 divided by 2 over negative square root of 2 over 2. Positive divided by negative is negative. The same thing being divided by itself is a 1, so it's going to be -1. For 0, it's 1 divided by 0. The x value divided by the y value, cosine divided by sine. The more we say it, cosine, sine, it'll help a lot to memorize it. And when you're doing a test, this is going to be super easy. 1 divided by 0 is, we cannot divide by 0. It's undefined. And we just put a u in here. Pi over 4. Pi over 4 is here. It's going to be square root of 2 divided by 2 over square root of 2 divided by 2. Both of them are positive. So since we're dividing the same thing over the same thing, is 1. For the next one, pi over 2, cosine is 0. Sine is 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. 3/4 of pi. 3/4 of pi, or 3 pi over 4 is this one right here. It's going to be square root of, negative square root of 2 divided by 2 over positive square root of 2 over 2. Negative divided by positive is negative. The same thing divided by the same thing is 1, so it's going to be -1. Pi is right here. It's cosine divided by sine. And so it's -1 divided by 0. -1 divided by 0. Not possible. Error. So we'll put undefined. And it's a u in here. And then finally, 5/4 of pi, or 5 pi divided by 4. Both values are negative. So it will be negative square root of 2 over 2 over negative square root of 2 over 2. Negative divided by negative is positive, and the same thing divided by itself is always 1. So the answer is 1. Okay, let's move our unit circle. And so let's start graphing. Negative pi over 2. Negative pi over 2 is right here. 0. Oh, and remember, I made the mistake last time to put the 1 in here. We're just going to put it close. So that's positive 1. This is going to be -1. So negative pi over 2 is 0. Negative pi over 4 is -1. So right here, it helps that it's a different color. 0 undefined. That means that our undefined line will be right on the y-axis. Okay. Pi over 4 is 1. Pi over 4, 1. Pi over 4 is 1. So pi over 4 is 1 right there. Pi over 2 is 0 right there. 3/4 of pi. 3/4 of pi is -1, is right there. And pi is undefined. So notice how in here, well, let me graph this first. Notice how in here, we only got that part and then it got cut off by the undefined. So now our graph is going this direction. So we start right here. Never touches the undefined. It approaches it, but it does not meet with it. Okay, so we do the same thing in this direction, more or less. Okay, so now I want you to see, and we'll graph the other ones, but I want you to see how this goes kind of like a positive way, and then this is the reciprocal, goes down. Okay, let's continue to graph this. We are at pi, so the next one is 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 is 1 right there. Actually do one more, which would be 3/2 of pi, or 3 pi over 2, and it will be 0 divided by -1, 0 divided by -1, which is 0. So it's right there. It will be 7/4 of pi. 7/4 of pi will be negative divided by positive. It's going to be -1. I want to write the x value. I'll do it here. For the x value being 7 pi over 4, it's going to be cosine over sine, so square root of 2 divided by 2 over negative square root of 2 over 2. Positive divided by negative is going to be -1, because we're dividing the same thing over the same thing. And so that will be the next right here, which is -1. I just wanted to show to make sure that you see at least 2 periods in here being graphed. Okay, so this will go approaching but not touching. And you can guess that this is going to be undefined, right? So it's not going to touch that line. Okay, and so even without the values, once you get the first one, you can really go beyond that and do it, because it's a repetition. Okay, and the same thing over here. We only got these 2 points, but we can actually graph them like this as well. Okay, not touching, just approaching that undefined line. And you can also guess, or you can actually do the work to go back to that value, and again it'll approach but not touch. Whoa, I think I touched. I burned myself. And so it goes here. Okay, so this is the cotangent. I know that I didn't do maybe enough values on the left, but again, it's a repetition of the same over and over and over. And so here you have the cotangent graph and the tangent graph, the reciprocal of each other. Now you're able to do 10.8, but before you do that, if you can just give us a thumbs up, subscribe around here, look at the playlist in here. There are other videos related to the unit circle and how to get these values, how to work with, and here you will, and around here you will find the next video. And remember, have fun.